In Detroit, government and labor groups work to find new jobs and careers for unemployed auto workers who may never get their old jobs back. In Los Angeles, one advertising firm tries to make all the movies it markets into box office hits as big as E.T. And in New York, Alan Greenspan talks about why gold may not be as precious a metal as it once was.
Those and other stories on The Nightly Business Report with Del Frank, Linda O'Brien, and Paul Kangas. The Nightly Business Report is brought to you in part by Digital Equipment Corporation, the world's second largest computer company, providing computer solutions for professionals from professionals, and public television stations throughout the nation. Now, the Nightly Business Report.
Good evening, everyone. Linda O'Brien is off tonight, and Jane Coleman is sitting in for her. General Motors today reported record third-quarter earnings of $737 million, or $2.33 per share. That's nearly 5 times GM's profits for the same quarter last year. Automakers' profits are usually depressed during the third quarter as a result of plant closures stemming from the annual changeover of models. But GM said that because of increased sales this year, it kept its plants shut down for shorter periods than in the past, a move that helped to hold down expenses. However, it was a different story over at American Motors, which posted a $9 million loss for the quarter, its 14th loss in a row. Jane?
The nation's leading retailer joined the top automaker in reporting record earnings for the July to September period as Sears Roebuck turned in a 73% increase in profits. Part of that earnings gain reflected the latest quarter's inclusion of figures for the firm's Canadian subsidiary, Simpson Sears. But Sears chairman Edward Telling said strong showings by the company's merchandise, insurance, real estate, and financial services groups also contributed to the record performance for the quarter. Now let's check in with that leading retailer stock market information, Paul Kangas, for a look at today's sales on Wall Street. Paul.
Thank you, Jane. And let me also thank Bill LaFave, Purcell Graham's chief market strategist, for doing his usual fine job of filling in for me last Thursday and Friday while I was in Washington for the National Association of Security Dealers Conference. To briefly review last week's market highlights, a surprisingly large earnings decline forecast by market leader Digital Equipment and an actual 28% drop reported by American Telephone in its third quarter put Wall Street in a negative mood, and the Dow Industrial Average lost 14 2/3 points for the week overall, including Friday's closing deficit of 2.64. This was followed this morning by a sharp opening sell-off triggered not only by Friday's post-market report of an unexpected $2.4 billion rise in the M1 money supply, but also by the tragedy in Beirut over the weekend in which some 180 U.S. Marines were murdered. After tumbling nearly 17 points in the early going, the industrial average finally managed to regain a little composure by trimming its loss to 12 points by the end of the first hour of big board trading, although declining stocks still swamped advancers by an 11-2 margin. Opening hour volume expanded to 23.3 million shares from Friday's 19.75 million. While prices continue to recover slowly over the midday hours, I'd like now to show you an excerpt from my interview with Treasury Secretary Donald Regan late last week. As the former chairman of Merrill Lynch, Mr. Regan is well steeped in the ways of Wall Street, and after he told our viewers a little over a year ago that it was a good time to buy stocks because a bull market was awakening, good advice indeed, I asked him for an updated forecast.
I would say that at this time, while the bull market looks a little tired and it's been stumbling around a little bit, it is by no means over. I think that the market gradually, over a period of months, will continue its climb and probably go to much higher levels than it is currently. I think there are an awful lot of ifs in here and the like, but by and large, I think that we still have quite a bit to go on this bull market.
Well, happily at 1 o'clock, the industrial average managed to cut its loss to less than 9 points, but decliners still had gainers by a wide 11-4 margin. Getting back to my chat with Treasury Secretary Regan, I asked him what he thought about the drubbing that the high technology stocks took last week.
As far as the high-tech themselves are concerned, this shouldn't be a surprise. This has happened to many industries where you have an industry that starts out in its infancy. Many people get into it. Some are shaken out when times get tough. and then the strong ones emerge and they stay with us. So I think that those investors who are in sound companies in that field should stay there. I think there are many other places to look around for investment in new fields that will do equally well.
In any event, at 3 o'clock, the industrial average reduced its deficit to only about 4 points, with losers leading gainers 1,070 to 460. Reflecting upon the market's steady improvement in the afternoon and some excellent third-quarter earnings reports out today, including that great one from General Motors, traders did enough buying in the final hour to push the Dow Industrial Average into the plus column by the final bell as it closed with a gain of 0.10 at 1248.98. Quite an improvement from the opening hour, and a decent gain indeed in the transport index, up nearly 3 points, utilities up a quarter point, then a small loss in the New York Stock Exchange Index, a small gain in the S&P 500, and the Value Line Index up, or I should say down 0.90. A mixed close. We'll be back with details shortly. Jane?
Gold prices rose only slightly today despite the new crisis in Lebanon. In London, gold closed at $396.13, up $2.25 from Friday's close of $393.88. In New York, gold climbed to $398.30, up $4.90 from Friday's close of $393.40. Silver prices also moved up, closing at $9.64, up 13 cents. Later in this broadcast, Alan Greenspan comments on why gold prices may no longer reflect world tensions. The Mideast situation had more of an effect on the dollar, pushing it up in early trading. But by the end of the day, dollar rates settled back to near Friday's levels. In New York, the dollar closed at 2.11 Swiss francs, down from 2.12 francs. The dollar fell against the Japanese yen, finishing the day at 232.8 yen, down from 233.4 yen.
Japanese automakers could be in a fix if Congress passes the local content bill, which is due for a vote within the next few weeks. That bill would require all cars sold in this country to be made with a certain percentage of American parts and labor. Michigan Congressman John Dingell rates the bill's chances in the House as excellent, and he says there's no reason to fear that its passage would bring about retaliation against American imports by the Japanese.
The argument's been made that the Japanese would engage in retribution against the United States were we to pass domestic content legislation. That's about as silly an argument as I've ever heard. They have been practicing retribution against the United States and retaliation against the United States ever since I can remember, by engaging in what is a very clear trade war against the United States, dumping goods here, foreclosing U.S. goods entry, all the way from agricultural commodities clear through finished goods of every type.
Another supporter of the local content bill, United Auto Workers Union President Owen Bieber, said today that if that bill is defeated by the Republican-dominated Senate, it should be made an issue in the 1984 presidential campaign.
In Detroit, representatives of Chrysler and the United Auto Workers Union today signed a 2-year contract that includes an immediate $1 an hour wage increase for Chrysler's U.S. workers. The pact, which UAW members approved last month, restores the concessions Chrysler workers gave up 4 years ago to help the automaker avoid bankruptcy. Under the contract, Chrysler workers will eventually get the same wages and benefits as their counterparts at General Motors and Ford.
Even though American automakers are calling more and more workers back to the assembly line, some auto workers probably will never get their old jobs back. They've lost their jobs to automation, foreign competition, and reduced production in the auto industry. Tonight, we focus on the efforts of several public and private organizations to retrain at least some of those workers for other occupations. Bob Rossback of our Detroit Bureau reports on how 2 of those programs are working.
For the first time in 1982, the Ford-UAW National Agreement made provisions to help laid-off workers re-career outside of the auto industry. A 5-cent an hour contribution from the pay of working members finances tuition grants and retraining programs. It's up to the local unions to select appropriate programs in high-demand fields. One major challenge was selling members on retraining for jobs as different from the nuts and bolts of automaking as, well, nursing.
Nursing is a fallacy in most males' mind about being a nurse, saying that you have to be somewhat gay or whatever. But majority of our class in our nursing program are males because of the salesmanship that the counselors have done to tell them that, this is a very remarkable occupation, and how much they make and how much schooling it takes.
They gave a test for the nurses program at the local, And I took the test out of the lock, you know, on a dare from Benjamin Hemingway. He told me, he said, you a dummy, you probably get a 0 on the test. So I took the test, and lo and behold, I got a 68 or 69 percentile, which a national norm is 40 or 45.
Hartman is one of 29 UAW members enrolled in an 18-month practical nursing program administered by Highland Park Community College.
They have handled college work as well as most students. As a matter of fact, better than most, because we had no failures in this first group.
Other programs, still in the proposal stages, will train former auto workers to be surgical assistants, respiratory therapists, legal secretaries, electronics technicians, and cable TV installers and repairmen. UAW Ford retraining programs are projects of the private sector, but tucked away on the 6th floor of Wayne State University's Science Library is one of the city's most successful retraining programs, a 10-week course in word processing.
Best training in the world is not worth anything unless the person can re-enter the world of work, and that's what this program rests on, the statistics that demonstrate that over 70% of the students have re-entered the world of work.
The program is rigorous, and as the students are learning to operate state-of-the-art Wang and IBM equipment, they are also drilled on something called presentation, a skill in evidence at the job fair that capped last semester's course. The students are very much on display.
We welcome the opportunity to be on display, to be able to present ourselves and all the work we've done and worked towards. It's really an opportunity.
Invited to look over the graduates were 250 employers that use word processing equipment, including several who had hired graduates of the program before.
I think you'll notice here that as you meet the students and visit with them, you find that they are very aggressive, and they do go up to many of the employers and ask them what their companies are doing and what their opportunities are for them.
In Detroit, the demand for training far outstretches the supply of programs and funds. According to a recent city study, 334,000 Detroit residents are eligible for training, yet only about 2% of them will find their way into programs and new careers. In Detroit, I'm Bob Rossback for the Nightly Business Report.
Unless there's a strong upward move in the market sometime soon, Paul, is it possible stockbrokers may have to look into retailing?
Retailing or retraining, whatever? I don't think so. Look at these nice gains, including the Dow Industrial Average managed from a 17-point loss to turn into plus territory. That's very encouraging, even though it's just a 1/10 of a point gain. Transport's doing nicely, and then a mixture all the rest of the way down, fractional mixture. Trading volume today down a bit from Friday's pace. Up volume, interestingly, exceeded down volume thanks to that afternoon rally. 610 issues closed higher, 984 down, though, and only 12 new highs for the year and 24 new lows. That's a little ominous. IBM topped the active list on 1.3 million shares, a full-point gainer. American Telephone, however, down 5/8. Merrill Lynch was up 1 5/8, although it reported sharply lower third-quarter earnings, 38 cents down from last year's 123, but not as bad as a lot of analysts expected. Lifemark up 2.5. American Medical International wants to take over Lifemark for $1 billion worth of stock, 1.71 shares of American Medical International. That works out to around $45 a share. Digital Equipment up 3/4 of a point, 5th in volume today, and Citicorp up 1 1/4. Northern Indiana Public Service showed no change. Hewlett-Packard gaining 3/4, Exxon up 3/8, and Chrysler, number 10 in volume, showed no change today. Sarco, a real turnaround from last year when the company lost $57 million in its third quarter. This year it earned $2.9 million. Coleco down 5/8. It had lower earnings out today, 14 cents versus $1.15 last year. DuPont lost a quarter. Kodak edged up 3/8. General Motors up 1/2. Homestake and the strong precious metals group up 2 1/8 today. And Transworld Corp up 1 7/8, helping the Dow Transport Index. Transworld reported lower earnings today, but not that much lower from last year, 273 versus 340. Grolier Incorporated, the best percentage gainer, a turnaround situation. After a $3.5 million loss in last year's third quarter, they earned $1.6 million this year. Gearhart Industries trading ex-dividend up 3.5 points. Smith International says it'll buy 23% of the company, getting most of its stock from General Electric Venture Capital, and will pay $31 a share. Fieldcrest Mills up 2 points. The company more than doubled its third quarter earnings, and Hayes Albion up 1 1/8. A number of analysts, including the professional tape reader Stan Weinstein, like the auto parts makers, and that's what Hayes does. American District Telegraph down 2 7/8, biggest percentage loser. The company in with lower third quarter earnings, 51 cents versus last year's 55 cents. Orion Pictures down 2 points. No explanation from the company, although they said there was a large block that traded near the close. American Medical International, which is paying $1 billion worth of its stock for LifeMark down 2 5/8 earnings dilution, and Thompson Medical still ailing after that very negative article 2 weeks ago in Barron's Financial. Over in the American Exchange, nearly a 1.25-point loss in the market value index, trading volume down a bit and a lot more issues losing than gaining. Imperial Chemical and a little over 500,000 shares top the active list, no change there. Wang Labs up a quarter, Dome Petroleum down a 16th. Key Pharmaceuticals, a major casualty. Its third quarter earnings not as high as they thought, a lot of analysts thought they would be. 14 cents up from 11 cents last year. Thai Communications gained 3/4. First, Arkansas Bank stock up 1 7/8. Stevens Incorporated bought a 25% interest. National Patent Development up 2 1/4. The FDA approved its new dental caries removal system. On the downside, Helm Resources dropping 3/8, biggest percentage loser. Science Management down 2 points on the news it's buying privately held worldwide publications. No sum disclosed. Over-the-counter trading, a 2 2/3 point loss in the index. Trading volume down 11 million shares from Friday's pace. Many more losers than gainers. MCI Communications topped the active list, down 3/4. Apple Computer was up 1 1/4, although its earnings were only 8 cents in its fiscal fourth quarter, down from 32 cents last year. Not as bad as a lot expected, apparently. Tandem down 1 1/2. Intel lost a quarter, while Tandem Computer gained a quarter. Bond prices opened lower this morning, extending the losses posted last Friday after that $2.4 billion rise in the money supply was reported. That, of course, dimmed hopes for any near-term relaxation of Federal Reserve policy. And another depressant for the debt markets today was that investors were very hesitant prior to Wednesday's announcement of the Treasury's mid-quarter refunding needs. Looking at the long Treasury market, though, the 2013's down 2 full points, but that's from the, quote, prior to the money supply news last Friday. Over in the corporate market, the American Telephone's down 5/8. And now we have a new bond replacing that old Florida Power Agency bond. I think this is more representative. The Adventist Health System Sunbelt Incorporated, 9 3/4 of 2004, AAA rated, and American Municipal Bond Assurance Corporation insured. The bond today down a 1/2 point. A review of the Fed funds rate opened at 9 3/8, and that's where it closed. That's the Wall Street wrap-up. Del?
Like a ball. Direct marketing involves all methods of selling items directly to the consumer, bypassing the middleman in the process. Last year, direct marketing sales increased by 10% to an estimated $137.5 billion. In fact, the president of the Direct Marketing Association, Robert DeLay, says that by 1990, direct marketing could account for a quarter of all general merchandise sales in the United States. But DeLay says the direct marketing industry is concerned about that rapid growth.
The medium itself, or the method of doing business, is really exploding, and it complements retail very well, and many industrial companies have used it for a long time. But literally, there's so many new techniques, the new technologies and also to use, that it's just expanding everywhere, and we're just trying to be sure that we do this in an informed, sensible, logical business way.
Looking ahead to advances in direct marketing through the use of cable TV, video text, and home computers, DeLay says the industry must do more to attract new individuals to its ranks.
For many of us who go to the movies, the previews of coming attractions are a favorite part of the show. But the directors and producers of the upcoming films have little to do with the previews or the poster and print advertising associated with their films. So what segment of the business of America is responsible for putting out the paraphernalia that is supposed to draw people to theaters? Jeffrey Kay of our Los Angeles bureau got an inside look at one company that plans movie advertising campaigns.
The copy says, no matter how much he cries, no matter how much he begs, never, never feed him after midnight. And on midnight, when that hand reaches the 12, the light previously from the refrigerator slams shut.
Great.
We are looking in on the creation of the trailer for Steven Spielberg's latest film, Gremlins.
I love the fact that you never, ever get a glimpse of him. Joel will want that, and I think Steven will embrace that, especially after the experiences with E.T.
Those experiences with E.T. helped put Intralink Film Graphic Design Limited on the map. The Los Angeles-based creative service agency's association with Major Motion Pictures has made the advertising design group a heady success in its 3 years in existence. Sharon Benoit, managing editor of Adweek West, has watched closely the rise of Intralink.
Intralink is unusual in the movie marketing area, in that it does offer a full range of creative services.
The images that the movie-going public associates with the world's hottest-selling movies are conceived of with a total advertising package in mind.
We think that if you hear a radio commercial, if you see a poster, if you are at home and you turn on your television and you see a television commercial, and there is a strong design element that's compatible to all of those communication elements, it will have a positive effect on you.
Intralink services do not come cheap. The firm's clients pay between $200,000 and $500,000 for the design of a movie marketing campaign.
The film Newsweek magazine calls one of the best American movies of the year.
There are special ones that make us very proud. We're proud to have been asked to do E.T. The major challenge of E.T. was that we never saw the E.T. prior to designing the ad campaign.
Similarly, Intralink began work on the marketing campaign for Gremlins without seeing the main character.
We think that he too is going to be lovable and emotional and romantic, and we think that next summer is going to be a Gremlin summer. Does it become magical at that point as opposed to reality? I think we care an awful lot about what comes out of our company.
Every company is going to tell me that, right?
Yes.
Every company
Yes.
president is going to say we care.
Absolutely, but we really do.
In Los Angeles, this is Jeffrey Kay for the Nightly Business Report.
Coming up, Alan Greenspan talks about why gold may have lost some of its glitter.
National Intergroup, which changed its name from National Steel last month, today reported third-quarter earnings of 80 cents per share. That's the first quarterly profit reported by a major American steel maker in more than a year. National said part of the gain came as a result of improved profits from its steel division, as well as its aluminum and financial services divisions. However, two-thirds of National's profits came from a one-time gain on an exchange of common stock for bonds. National Intergroup stock closed today at 28 3/8 unchanged.
Meanwhile, Armco said today it'll close its steel plant on the Houston Ship Channel early next year. The steel company cited competition from imported steel and depressed demand for steel from the energy industry as the main reasons for the shutdown. The United Steelworkers Union, which represents 1,100 workers still at the plant, expressed shock at Armco's decision, but said the primary blame should go to the government for failing to control imports of foreign steel.
Interest rates rose at today's Treasury bill auction. The average yield on three-month bills rose to 8.66%, up from 8.63% the week before. The average yield on six-month bills rose to 8.91%, up from 8.79% last week. The bank rate monitor says that as of last Wednesday, major banks were paying an average of 9.48% on six-month money market certificates, while savings institutions were paying an average of 9.44%.
In tonight's commentary, economist and presidential advisor Alan Greenspan gives us his perspective on the role gold now seems to be playing in international financial markets.
Gold used to be the unique inflation hedge. When any spark of uncertainty or inflation fears gripped the economy, the conventional wisdom was buy gold. That recommendation rarely surfaces these days. What's happened? Is gold no longer a hedge against inflation? After countless generations, is it possible that gold has somehow lost its ancient capacity as a store of value? Not likely, but it is certainly true that in today's markets, gold is no longer a hedge against future inflation. The reason is that interest rates are now capturing a full inflation premium for the first time in decades. lenders' expectations of the annual deterioration of the purchasing power of the dollar is already embodied in nominal long-term interest rates. To buy gold, you have to borrow money at interest rates which already discount the inflation expectation, or you have to sell off an asset with a rate of return already embodying the inflation expectation. In either case, in order to come out even as a speculation, the price of gold must rise annually by the rate of interest in addition to costs of storage and insurance. In short, if actual inflation is in line with market expectations, all the profit from inflation goes to the holders of financial instruments. Gold speculators make money only if inflation turns out to be greater than market expectations. The current demand for gold is largely for safe haven as distinct from store of value purposes. Gold prices will surely rise with the next major international crisis, but it is not because inflation is feared, but rather that the security of legal claims becomes questionable and gold holdings need no endorsement by legal authorities. This is Alan Greenspan.
And now with tonight's last word, here's Paul.
The New York State Power Authority isn't waiting for the greenhouse effect to take its course. Today it opened a greenhouse in Queens utilizing waste heat from a power plant to grow vegetables. Its expected yield, 100,000 pounds of cucumbers, 150,000 pounds of tomatoes, and 1 million heads of lettuce a year. Now, if we can only harness the hot air generated by the politicians in Washington, we could probably double the nation's agricultural output.
And that's the Nightly Business Report for Monday, October 24th.
And for all of us, good night.
The Nightly Business Report is brought to you in part by Digital Equipment Corporation, the world's second largest computer company, providing computer solutions for professionals from professionals, and public television stations throughout the nation.